People have lived on the continents of North America and South America for thousands of years. Scientists and historians do not agree about when the first people arrived. They continue to study the past to learn more about this. However, many believe that the first people traveled from Asia to North America about 15,000 years ago. Early people arrive in the Americas. Many scientists and historians agree that the first people arrived in North and South America over time and in several large groups. They have found evidence that early arrivals migrated or moved to the Americas in several different ways. Some early arrivals traveled by boat, while others traveled over land. Many of the first Americans may have crossed over to North America from Asia on what is today the Bering Strait. A strait is a narrow body of water. The Bering Strait was not a narrow body of water thousands of years ago, when some of the first Americans may have crossed it. It was a dry bridge of land that people today call Beringia. Thousands of years ago, the temperatures were very cold, much colder than today. There were thick sheets of ice that covered much of the land. Many scientists and historians think that the first people crossed the land bridge from Asia because they were tracking animals to hunt. They lived in North America as hunter-gatherers, traveling from place to place in search of animals to hunt, fish to catch, and fruit and nuts to collect. 1. Reading check. Look at the map. Describe the directions of the routes and analyze why people might have migrated in those directions. Possible routes of first people from Asia to the Americas.
Using resources to live. Over thousands of years, indigenous people moved to different areas of North and South America to live. They found that the geography, or land and bodies of water of a place, varied. The climate, the weather in a place over time, was also different in each region. Often the geography and climate influenced where people decided to settle and how they used the resources of an area. Resources are distributed differently across continents. They also affect how people live, what they use to build their homes, what they eat, the clothing they wear, and the tools they create. Areas with mountains are often colder and wetter than low-lying areas with dry, hot deserts. They have different resources, but both areas pose different challenges for survival. People had to adapt or adjust to their environment in order to live in it. Sometimes they had to modify it or change it. Early peoples were hunter-gatherers and often roamed a region in search of food. They were nomads, people who move within a specific region to follow herds of animals and collect food. When people began practicing agriculture about 10,000 years ago, they modified their environment. Agriculture is the practice of planting and raising food. People who were living then in what is present-day Mexico were the first farmers in North America. The area where they lived was dry and hot. They needed to bring water from nearby rivers to their crops. This kind of technology, or the use of scientific knowledge or tools to do work, is called irrigation. Groups that farmed stayed in one place. Indian groups in the Southwest and east of the Mississippi built permanent settlements and often built their villages in areas that were near water. Groups in the Pacific Northwest had little need for agriculture. They lived on coastal land between present-day California and Alaska. The region's oceans and rivers provided fish. Groups hunted deer and gathered nuts and berries in the forests.
Using resources to live. Continued. Some groups on the large flat grasslands of the Great Plains were nomads, while others established villages and farmed the rich soil near rivers. All plains groups depended on the buffalo as their primary food source. Lifestyles of ancient American peoples. Nomadic. Hunting and gathering. Limited agriculture. Limited fishing. No irrigation. Stationary. Agriculture. Limited hunting and gathering. Fishing. Irrigation. 2. Reading check. Mayan and Aztec civilizations. Wherever agriculture developed, it helped to feed more people, and populations began to grow. Growing settlements needed rules for living together and making decisions that affected everyone. Eventually, something called civilizations developed. In civilizations, there are organized systems of government, religion, and learning. Central America was home to advanced civilizations, including the Maya and later the Aztec. The Maya rose about 3,500 years ago. They developed a writing system, made a very accurate calendar, charted movements of the moon and stars, and created a system for advanced math. Yet Mayan civilization faded by about the year 900. Aztec civilization began to thrive throughout southern Mexico and Central America. The Aztec built their main city center in what is today Mexico City. It was called Tenochtitlan. Hundreds of thousands of people lived there at one point. The Aztec modified their environment in order to live in it. Beds were made out of reeds, tall grasses that grow in lakes. They built floating gardens to grow their crops on the shores of lakes outside the dry land of Tenochtitlan. 3. Reading check. Describe to a partner how the picture of the Aztec floating gardens shows people modifying the environment. Other North American groups. Other cultures emerged in North America thousands of years ago. These included the Inuit, the Mound Builders, and the ancestral Puebloans. They lived in very different climates and had a variety of resources available to them. The Inuit live in the far northern part of North America, where it is frozen much of the year. They had to adapt to a harsh environment where there are few plants and land animals. The Inuit relied on the sea for whales, seals, and other sea animals. They developed and used the kayak, a small canoe that is watertight, to fish in the sea. Homes were built out of blocks of snow. About 3,000 years ago, the Mound Builders developed a civilization that started around the Ohio River. They had resources such as trees and earth for building. They built large mounds made of earth. Some scientists believe that the mounds were used for religious ceremonies or as graves. By digging in the mounds, they know that the Mound Builders traded with other groups because they found materials that are not available in the environment where the mounds were built. The ancestral Puebloans first appeared about 2,000 years ago. They lived in the desert southwest that includes the present-day states of Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, and Utah. The Puebloans lived in a dry environment, but they were successful farmers because they used irrigation. They dug canals to bring water to fields of crops such as corn, beans, and squash. The cliff dwellings that the ancestral Puebloans left behind are an example of their great skill in building and modifying the environment. They built homes inside cliffs to stay cool in the hot climate and to get shelter from the sun. The Puebloans left their cliff dwellings in about the year 1300 and did not return. After this period, the Navajo and other people migrated to the southwest.
Adapting to the environment. These North American groups, and later other nations such as the Iroquois, Huron, Cherokee, Navajo, Creek, Hopi, Algonquin, and Lakota, Sioux, adapted to their environment. Many modified it as needed to survive and to support their ways of life. The Chumash, who lived in present-day Southern California, used fire to burn shrubs and grasslands. When they cleared the land, they could better hunt animals such as deer. They would use the deer for food and use the skins for shelter and clothing. They used the antlers for tools. Woodland peoples used deer in the same way. They used the wood from forests to build their homes, canoes for travel and fishing, and tools and utensils. A group called the Calusa lived on the Florida coast and used shells as a resource. They even built an island made of shells. Other Native Americans also had shells available to them in some coastal areas. Groups like the Chumash used seashells to make many items, including jewelry, tools, and decorations for clothing. 4. Reading check.